The last part of this lecture that I want to talk about isn't really related to control, and it's not related to the if-else and the comparisons that we've been talking about. It's introducing you to another system.out method. So we learned about system.out.println, which prints and kind of puts an enter at the end. And then we also learned about just print, where it prints and stops, doesn't go to the next line. There's another method called printf, which is used for formatting. And the way this method works is that it takes two arguments. One is a string that you want to format, or the formatted string, and then some other arguments. And the only way you'll learn what this does is by practice. So the first thing is, if I just want to use the printf as if it was a print statement, I can say system.out.printf and give it a message. So let's try that out. Let's comment out all this code. And let's just come here and say system.out.printf hello world, the most famous program. And so you'll see that when I run this, it's behaving like the print statement. It printed hello world, it didn't go to the next line. So it's exactly as if I just did print. If I just do the print, I will get the same result. Okay, so if I wanted to behave like a println, I would have to put the /n in myself. Okay, so I can use it like I did with the print. Now that's not really useful, right? We want to see what else we can do with it. So the next thing I can do with it is I can print some strings in it with placeholders. So let me show you an example. Let's say I have here string, again, let's say n1 equal to cat and n2 equal to dog, for example. Let's say I want to print a message that says println I have a, and then here I'll say n1. Okay. So this will print me that I have a cat. Now, if I wanted to, like, let's say put a period here, you see that I keep switching between having a string literal and then a variable and then a string literal. And I could, if I have a string that's longer, I could keep doing that. It's a little confusing. So what this printf lets me do is I can say printf, and then I put the string I have a, and here I want to insert a variable. This variable n1 is a string. The placeholder we use for a string is %s, and then I would put a period. And then after I finish all my expression, then I use a comma, not a plus, a comma, and I would say what variable I want to put in place of this placeholder. So here I want the variable n1 to show up, so I would say n1. Will also print me the same as the line above it, except I forgot the /n. So let's do that again with /n. So now it's the same thing. Now, if I wanted to do it a little bit, I want more things in it, that's where it kind of comes in handy. I have a cat and a dog. And you notice that I don't have to keep like putting plus and all that. I put my expression, and then I start putting the names of the variables that I want to put inside, replace. So here, because I have two placeholders, I have to give it two variables. I want the first one to be n1, and I want the second one to be n2. And so now it'll say I have a cat and a dog. Okay, now if I wanted the dog first, then I would have to make sure that the dog variable comes first. So this way it'll be a dog and a cat. Okay, so now I'm using placeholders. So the placeholder for strings is %s. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, how about if I wanted to put a whole number in there? So the placeholder for a number that's a whole number is %d. So for example, I have, let's say, int, let's say dog count equal to 2 and cat count equal to 5. So now I can say I have, and then I want to say a and 1 and N2 again. So I want to say that I have percent D because I want a number, cat, and cats, and percent D, dogs. So now the first thing is a number. So I want to put cat count first. And then I want to put the word cat, which is stored in N1. And then I want to put the next number, which is dog count. So I'm going to say here dog count. And then I want N2. So this will print for me that I have 5 dogs. I have, 5 cats and 2 dogs. Okay, so the percent D matches a whole number and the percent S matches the string. So the placeholder for the string is percent S. The placeholder for a number that's a whole number is the percent D. Now, what if I had a float? Let's add a float there. Let's say float age. Or actually, let's just introduce another sentence. Let's say pay rate equal 5.8F, for example. Okay. So here I have that, and let's make it percent N. I get paid percent F. So now this percent F is at the end, so that variable that's a float needs to come at the end, and it'll just be pay rate. And since this is long, I'm just going to put it on the next line so you guys can see it. So now let's test it and see if I get the pay rate at the end. And I do. I get paid 5.8000. And because it's a float, it's showing me the whole bunch of zeros that I don't need. So the nice thing about percent F and even percent D, but percent F has some extra features that the other percent don't have. If I want to display a variable, display the float with a certain number of digits after the decimal. So here I want to show my pay rate maybe with only 2 digits after the decimal. So between the percent and the F, you can put a number like 0.2, like here in the example, 0.2. And what this 0.2 does is says, I want you to only show 2 digits after the decimal. So instead of showing all these zeros, what I want to do is I'm going to come here to the percent F, and I'm going to put after it let's say if I say 0.4, it's going to show me 4 digits after the decimal. So now I have 4 digits. But if it's money, I only want to show 2 digits after the decimal. So now when we're doing the rounding, when we're doing calculations based on money, you don't have to display to the user $2.086754. You can just say, oh, I'm going to round it, not round it, but I'm going to display only 2 digits after the decimal using the percent, the printf. So you can control how many digits after the decimal. If your number is big, let's say a number like that, and you print it, it's a little hard to see what this number is. Is it 57,000 or is it 577,000? It's hard. What you can do is you can put a comma here after the percent, and what this does, it prints out the number with the comma separated for the thousands. So actually this number turned out to be 5 million. Okay, so you can do this formatting to make it a little easier for you to read the number. You can do the point like 2 alone, you can do the comma alone, or you can do a combination of them both. With, let's say, the dogs also, let's say I have all these dogs, you can do all that with the dog also. So if I put a comma here, I will see that the dog count will get printed with a comma in it to make it a little bit easier for me. Oh, we need it here. Let's do it here. And so now I see that that number that I have here is 2 million. So that comma applies for the percent D, and it applies also for the percent F. The other thing you can do is specify the field width. You can specify how wide you want a variable to be printed in. And this is useful if you have something like a table. So here, let's say I'm printing, a string and then a number and then like a double. If I was to print it like just with a space between them, it would be hard to get it like to line up like this. But what I can do is I can say, I want you to print this for me in a space that's a certain field wide. And so what it will do, it'll come to this number and print it in a field that is 10 spaces wide. So for example, let's say I come here to the D and I put in a 10, or let's make it a small number like 4. You'll see here that the 5, so here I have this 5 got printed in a space that's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces wide. This is just the space that's after the I have. So now it reserved 4 spaces for it to be written in. And regardless how big the number is, it's always going to get this these 4 spaces. If 4 spaces are not enough, it's going to give it more. So I can come here. If I say 4, this is not going to really do anything because 4 is too small for this number. So it's not going to truncate it. But if I was to make it like, let's say 14, then I will see the spaces start showing up. Okay, so now this space that is reserved is 14 spaces wide. So this is nice if you have a table that you're printing things like in a table format. This really helps. Okay. Now, if you wanted to take this string and do something else with it, there's a string.format method that can do that. We're not going to really be using the string.format method. You might want to use it when we get to the files chapter, but you don't really need to. So here, the printf, it's printing immediately to system.out. If I wanted this string, string, let's say output equal to, and then I can say string.format. So instead of using the printf, I'm just using the format method, and it has the same way, it works the same way as printf. I give it the big string, and then I give it all the variables that are filling in these placeholders in my string. And then I can do whatever I want to do with the string. So I can come back and print it, or if I have a file that I want to write it to, like in a later chapter, I can do that. So it's going to do the same thing. So system.out.printf prints it out to system.out. The string.format just gives you back a string that is formatted that way. Okay. So this is the end of chapter 3. So this is the classwork that I want you to do. You're going to write a program that's going to ask the user for the full names of 2 students, their age, and their percent in class. So you're going to ask for every student, you're going to ask for those 3 pieces of information. And then what you're going to do is kind of like sort them. So one time you're going to sort them alphabetically. And then the next time you're going to sort them with the age, and the last time you're going to sort them by percent. When it says ascending order, it means from smallest to biggest. So the student with the that's younger is going to be printed out first. When it says descending order, it means from highest to lowest. So the person with the highest percent will get printed out first. When you're printing out the student, you're going to print also like their name and their age and their percent. And you're going to use the printf to format it so that all the percentage of the students has 4 digits after the decimal, and the age is going to be in a field that's 6 spaces wide. And you can see the sample output on HackerRank for an example for the output. And then this is the programming assignment for this section of chapter 3. Like I said before, chapter 3 is a big chapter. So we broke it up into kind of like 2 small chapters, 3A and 3B. So this is the programming assignment that's associated with this part of the chapter, and you can also do that on HackerRank.